Hello, in today's lesson, we'll be covering resume best practices for grad school applications. We are focusing on professional level applications like business, policy, law, MFA, MSW, education, social work. We are not talking about a CV for a PhD program. We'll put that in a different lesson. Creating a compelling resume is a crucial step in your graduate school application process, regardless of whether you're applying to business school, policy school, law school, education, social work, public health. But there are a lot of best practices that I can teach you today that you can use regardless of the degree. So I will teach you some general guidelines and give you a few specific points of advice for specific degrees. First, we'll talk about the length of your resume. For business school, we want to have a one-page resume. If you have 10 or more years of full-time post-college work experience, then I give you permission to have a two-page resume, as long as the school doesn't say otherwise. Policy school, education, social work, and public health resumes can actually be up to around 4 pages, as long as the resume is well formatted with plenty of white space. Of course, if the school you're applying to says otherwise, then abide by the limit that they give you. Law school resumes, they are typically 1 to 2 pages. But the thing that is equally important as keeping your resume within the required length is that your resume is visually appealing and easy to navigate with consistent fonts, bullet points, clear headings, and plenty of white space. Now let's talk about your skills and abilities. In your resume, you want to really highlight your relevant skills and ability, such as teamwork, leadership, problem solving. For policy school, things like policy analysis, program evaluation. For any management related degrees, such as an MPH or an MSW or a policy degree or business degree, you want to focus on skills like strategic planning, project management, analytical thinking, research, writing, and public speaking. When you talk about your skills and abilities, you do not want to focus on just the what of what you did, but also the why what you did matters to the team, organization, or company, as well as using numbers to quantify the results of your efforts. Larger numbers are not superior to smaller numbers. It's that quantifying your results is way better and far superior than not quantifying the results of your efforts. Ways to quantify the results of your efforts is things like number of team members, revenue generated, dollars saved, percentage improvement in a process. If you aren't sure of the exact numbers, making an estimate is okay. You also want to make sure that you end your resume with a personal section. I'm saying this pretty early on in the lesson because this is a very often forgotten about part of the resume, but it really matters. In the personal section, you can list any languages you speak, along with your specific hobbies and interests. This makes your resume more interesting and gives potential interviewers a way to connect with you on a personal level. And when you are talking about your hobbies and interests, you actually want to be as specific as possible. You don't want to just put travel. Almost everybody loves to travel. Instead, you want to be specific. For example, for me, instead of travel, I would say slow travel focused on fine dining of local cuisine and street food. I love street food and I love fine dining. So that would be an example. Or let's say you enjoy 3D printing. Don't just say 3D printing. You could say 3D printing fidget gadgets and household tools. Be very specific because that gives them more to latch on to and just really makes your resume pop. In terms of resume headings, there's no required layout for resume headings. At the Art of Applying, we do have recommended templates, which of course you have access to, and please do use those templates. We provide them because they work, and then you don't have to worry about wrangling with formatting. But in general, the structure of your resume will have your name on top, nice, big, and bold. That could be 12-point font. You can go up even to 14, 15-point font. I like the name to be in all caps. I do not think you need to include your address and phone number on your resume when applying to grad school because it takes up space and they're not going to use that to contact you. Do not use up more than 1 or 2 small lines on your contact information or just eliminate it completely. Then I want you to have an education section where you list the undergraduate institution you went to and what you studied. Don't include your GPA if it is below 3.5. They will see your GPA in your data that you submit with the application. Under education, you can also put where you studied abroad. You don't want to put things like trainings and certificates here. We're going to put those in a separate section called additional training and certificates. You can put that towards the bottom of your resume. After education usually comes professional experience, where you put your official work experiences. After that section, you could have a section called community service and leadership, or community service and volunteer. It could also be called public service and community service, just something where if you want to call out specific leadership roles or specific social impact based things that you've worked on, whether paid or not, you could do that. Especially that's very relevant section for people applying to what I might call the do-gooder degrees, like policy school, education, social work, public health. Depending on your degree, you may want to have a research and publication section. That's usually not really required or even recommended if you're applying to business school or policy school. For a master's degree, that's much more prevalent for PhD programs, but I do think that could be a helpful section if you do have some research experience or published research. To say it again, it would be your name at the top, possibly contact information, education, work experience, community service and volunteer. Possibly you want to have research and publications, and then you want to have a personal section. Let's talk about some other best practices. For each of your roles under professional experience or work experience, I really like to include a brief description of each organization. So you would name your employer and then in parentheses give a description of your employer. If your employer is an organization like Google or YouTube or Meta or DoorDash, then everybody knows that company. But if it is a company that people might not know, for example, if you're applying to policy school and you work at Cloudflare, people may not know what Cloudflare is. Or if you're applying to grad school and you work at a competitor to DocuSign, people may not be familiar with your company or what they do. So you can just provide in parentheses a brief description of the organization. Also, you may want to include subsections for specific roles or select projects if you're a consultant. If you're an investment banker, you might want to have a subsection for select transactions. For your bullet points, I would say each bullet point should be limited to about 1 to 3 lines. If they're getting beyond that, you're not really using bullet points anymore. You're just using a bullet, then dropping a whole bunch of info. You can add an additional information section if you have other information that doesn't seem to fit anywhere under the other headings I've mentioned. In terms of formatting, we really want to ensure we have strong visual appeal. You want to make sure you have plenty of white space in your resume. Your margin should be no less than 0.5 inches on all sides, and your font size should range from 10 point to 12 point in terms of text. Don't use a large variety of fonts. You want all your headings to be the same size, and then all your bullet point text to be the same size. For example, you could have your name nice, big, and bold at 14, or I'm dramatic. Maybe we bring it down to 13. Then you could have your education, professional experience, etc. headings. Maybe those are 12, and then maybe your bullet point text is 10, for example. In terms of line usage, you want to use the majority of the white space on each line when you are filling out bullets. So if a bullet extends to a second line by only 1 or 2 words, you either want to add more detail to that bullet to use up the entire second line, or you want to rephrase that bullet so that it only takes up 1 line. Those are the little tweaks we do in order to fit everything we need into the resume. You can also adjust the page margins, the font size of the white space that's in between sections. You can even change the indentation of the bullets as necessary to get everything to fit. If you want us to do that for you, of course, we're here to help. And so in my final notes, you want to ensure that your resume is a showcase of your most important and relevant experiences, meticulously proofread to avoid errors. We are here to review your resume and provide feedback. And I want you to remember that your resume is a reflection of your professional journey. It should highlight your accomplishments, skills, and experiences. always catering to the biggest and the best of what you've done, as well as the types of experiences that will be most relevant to your graduate school program. All right, see you in the next lesson.